welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Thai master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And we're happy to have Anne-Marie back after the last couple of weeks. We kind of missed you around here, so it's good to have you back.
I missed you guys. I had a great trip. I was saying to you earlier, last week I was jet lagged because I decided to go Christmas shopping after landing, which wasn't the best idea, but I'm human again.
You survived. That's the most important part.
I did.
Well, it's wonderful to have you back. We're really glad. And it's also wonderful to have our guest joining us today because, among other things, she has done the kind of thing that I like to do with my life. She's followed her heart in a lot of different directions that I kind of suspect some were kind of predictable and others were not so predictable, which is really the best way to follow your heart, because then, first of all, you're unpredictable, which is a good thing. But secondly, it means that you're not trying to plan it all out in advance. And I value that very highly because, as you know, Anne-Marie, I went through a time where I was a planaholic, and it's a very unhappy place to be. So when you can get into that place of just going with what your heart's telling you, you can get through anything that way. At least that's what my experience is.
Absolutely. It's quite stressful being fully planned, isn't it?
Oh, Jesus, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't been named as an illness, a mental illness. Probably some psychologist somewhere is trying to publish a book on it, but we'll get her on the show at some point. But for today, we got Teri, and Teri, like I was saying, you've followed your heart in a lot of different directions. Some of them were kind of projectable and predictable. I mean, you were into telling stories from a very young age, is what I understand. But some of them, I get the sense that they just kind of popped up. You said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do that."
Absolutely, and even being a writer kind of popped up. Although I've always loved telling stories, I didn't think I was ever going to do anything with it. Like my parents pretty much were like, you don't, being a writer, that's not a real job. That's not a real career, And so I never really considered it as anything other than just like a hobby. I would tell stories to my kids and that kind of thing. I mean, I didn't really think about it as anything more than that. But eventually you get to a point in life where you just say, what do you want?
Yes.
And I wanted to be an author. And so I became one.
Which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is.
Because among other things, it means that you didn't allow your mind to be blocked by those parental / societal messages that say, well, that's not practical. You can't earn a living that way. So there's no point spending any time on that stuff. It's a waste.
But unfortunately, I did spend quite a few years with that as the mindset. But when I finally decided to shed it, I shed it all the way. I just said, it is what I want. And I'm loving doing what I'm doing. And it's opened up doors for a lot of other avenues that you wouldn't necessarily think went along with writing, but I now podcast, I do some public speaking, and all of that came about because I said yes to the writing.
Which is a wonderful thing. I love that. Well, first of all, why don't we clue people in? What have you written? I mean, you've published some stuff. Let's tell people what that is.
Okay, so I started out writing historical fiction. My first book was called Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. My second book was An Enemy Like Me. And then my third was Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. After I got those three done, I kind of went back in time, and my husband and I had taken a trip across the United States on a tandem bicycle. So 3,102 miles of togetherness. And and I wrote a book called 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. And so it is not a blow by blow and every day. If people want that, they can head over to my website. I kept a blog the whole time. And so you can find out everything.
Wow.
But this is more about like lessons I learned. So when we come back from the ride, I'm trying to figure all of this out. Like, did I really do that? Like, how did I really do that? Right. So I'm looking at the blog, and as I did, I recognized, look, you learned this and you learned that. And I started writing those down, and I realized that was going to be my next book. So 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. And then I also have a children's picture book that I've written because I have a granddaughter who said, Gigi, when are you going to write a book for me?
Ah,
I said, now, right now, sweetheart, let me
okay.
get right to that. And so I now have a children's picture book out as well.
Do you find that each book becomes easier and easier to write?
No. No. Partially because I keep challenging myself to do more, to do it differently, to think
Mm.
about it differently.
Mm.
The first couple of books were just hard because I'd never done it before. You don't really know. The third one that I wrote, I was really trying to kind of pick up places that I don't do well naturally. I'm terrible at describing things. I don't like, if we're going to talk about the room, it's like, yeah, we're in a room. What more do you need to know? So
This is not what you expect from a storyteller. I'm just going to lay that out there.
I'm very character driven. So I talk a lot about people and their feelings, their emotions, the things that are happening inside of them. That's where I really shine. That's the thing that I love. And I do really well with conversations that sound like real conversations. But my editor would say, this could be anywhere. I don't even know where we are. And it's like, well, what difference does it make? So I had to really work at that. So in the third novel, I worked really hard at setting and tried to purposefully think about what would people want to know. And then I've just written a book that I'm still in the editing phase, and I did something totally different. Instead of doing third person past tense historical fiction from multiple points of view, it's a contemporary humor, women's fiction, single point of view, and first person. So very different. So it's not easier because I keep challenging myself and trying new and varied things. I get bored really easily. I don't like to do the same things over and over. So I switch it up.
I love the fact that you describe yourself as being character driven in the way that you tell your stories.
Yeah.
And I say that because honestly, I think that's kind of a lost art these days. So much of what you see in the entertainment world, it's almost like the character is an afterthought.
Right. There's a lot, when it's the fast action drama, it's about the action. And even a lot of what they call high fantasy, it's about the place, it's about this world that they've created.
Right.
And I don't know, I love delving into people. I want to know what happened to her. And as I'm reading the book, I want to become a character. And to me, if I can become a character, then I feel like the author did a really good job because I'm living that character. And then when the book is over, I'm sad because I want to still be with these people that I have met and gotten used to. And because I like those kinds of books, I think that's why I write the way I do.
Yeah, well, I give you credit for. I've done some writing too, and it's one of the things I focus on. And I was noticing as I was doing my writing just how unusual it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, and not just with action movies and television and so forth, but just with books. It's amazing how many books, how many novels, how many stories really don't play up the character. I mean, they feel like, okay, I'll tell you who it is, how old they are, what they've done, and now let's just tell a story.
Yeah.
I want to get lost in out of my world into somebody else's world. I want to be taken on that journey, and explaining the character and their emotions is part of that.
Absolutely. So like the first book I wrote is Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. And it starts in Ukraine in the 1970s when Ukraine is still part of the Soviet Union. And I describe a scene where she's waiting in line for food and doesn't get any that day. And it's not the first day or the second day or even the third day that she hasn't had any, and what she's experiencing. And people said, well, how can you do that? You've never stood in a line for food like that. And I said, no, but I've been hungry. I mean, I've not been that hungry, but I've been hungry. And so I always say to myself, what would it be like if you were hungry for 2 days? Okay, now what about if it were 4 days? What about if it were a week? What if this became your life? This was like every day was about whether or not you would have anything to eat that day. And then what would you do? What would you be willing to do? You know, would you be a survivor? Would you be someone who'd be willing to do anything to survive? Where is your line? And I always try to think like that. And then I put my character into that spot and say, okay, where is her line? You know,
I think it's a really valuable thing to do, not just because it makes for better fiction, but also because when we stretch our minds in that way, what we're really doing is putting ourselves into the place of people that aren't us.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's a valuable skill. That's a skill that a lot of people really need to develop, in my opinion.
I think that's why one of the reasons I love to write is I feel like I can give people a chance to meet people they wouldn't meet otherwise, and to try to understand people who are different from them in some way. And doing it with historical fiction is wonderful because most people don't get uptight. You know, right. So like if you were to do a modern day something and say, bring up racism, you're going to end up with a lot of people who get uptight very quickly.
Sure.
But if you bring it up from the past and it's about, I don't know, like in Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, I have a Cherokee man who is not liked in this town and he's blamed for things, etc. And that doesn't offend people. Because it isn't, but it's because it's not really happening today. You know what I'm saying? So they can look at it as that thing that happened in the past versus that thing that's happening today. And so they can explore it without, I don't know. It's like they can explore it without feeling.
It's almost that judgment, isn't it? That judgment of today's world.
Yes. And so my hope is, though, that you read it. I had someone say to me not too long ago, you know, this book really could be written about today. And it's like, yeah, because humans haven't changed that much. You know, we have changed in terms of technology and how we get places and how we can communicate and all of those things. But in terms of how do we feel, women who lose children still hurt. You know, people still hate. Families still have difficulties. You know, laughter is still laughter. Love is still love. All of those things, nothing has really changed. And so to me, writing a historical is wonderful because it helps people get inside of heads and see things. And then maybe they can extrapolate and say, okay, what does that mean for today?
Yeah, that makes sense. And on the track of following your heart and exploring things, I mean, storytelling was a big part of it, but it wasn't the only thing that you followed your heart on over the last 10 years or so. I mean, there have been quite a few that were like, okay, here's a tangent over here. Let's go this direction.
So I'm sure that you're talking about The Bicycle Ride is one of the big.
Well, you already brought that one up. So
yes.
That's an easy one.
Right. So that came about, though, because I had been in an emotionally abusive relationship. I lived in it for 14 years because it was my second marriage and I did not want to be divorced twice. And I'm a very stubborn person. And I figured I would make this work. And eventually you get to a point where you can't and won't. And so when I left that relationship, I was pretty damaged. I mean, even though there was a piece of me that knew what was being done and what was being said wasn't true, you hear it long enough and it just affects you. As I'm leaving that relationship, my son had a friend who was walking the Appalachian Trail and I was reading his blog, and it was like I was a drowning woman and had found my life preserver. I read his blog posts like every time they came out, which was not daily because he's off in these mountains and doesn't always have internet, right? But when they would come out, I would read them and reread them and read them again and try to really understand what he was going through. And I thought, that's what I want. I want to do something big and bold, and I want to prove to the world that I have value. Well, the world did not believe I did not have value, but I needed to prove to Teri that Teri had value, right? But I didn't know that at the time. And so I'm thinking that's what I need. I met Bruce, who became my third husband. And at the time I met him, I was never marrying again, ever. I wasn't planning to date again, ever. I was done with that. I'd done it twice. I'd failed at it twice. I'm not good at that. We're done with that. You know, like I'm done. Bruce tells people that he chased me until I caught him. So essentially, Essentially, what that means is that he just didn't leave. He just
Mm.
kept being there until I grew accustomed to him and recognized that he really was the person that he said he was.
Mhm.
But he said, I've always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle. And I thought, oh, that would be something big.
Hmm.
And so I said, is this something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or are you going to do it? And he said, no, I really want to do it. I said, count me in. Now this,
Wow.
I wasn't planning to marry him. I just figured he seemed nice enough, and why not do a big adventure?
Mm.
Well, I've not been on a bicycle in 40 years at this point. Okay. So this is not Teri doing Teri. This is way outside my comfort zone.
Mm.
And he had a tandem bicycle, and he asked me if I'd like to go for a ride on it. I thought that would be kind of romantic, right? And so we get on this tandem bicycle. I had a great time. He apparently did not. I was not good on the back at all. I didn't know what I was doing. Poor guy. He said it was a struggle to keep the bike upright. I had no idea. But he's an avid cyclist and had been since middle school.
Hmm.
And we soon realized there was no way we were going to take someone like me and get myself up to where he was so that we could do single bike side by side. It was never going to be fun for him or for me. And so we decided to try it on the tandem, and I got much better on the tandem. We did 1,000 training miles. So, I got very used to it and knew what to do and how to do and all of those things. Yeah. And so the best thing about the tandem was he couldn't go faster than me, and I couldn't go slower than him.
Oh, yes.
Right. I mean, we had to work together, and we did get married. And then a year later went on the trip, and we went during the summer of 2020, which COVID summer. The intent was not to go during COVID summer. It was to go during the summer of 2020.
Mm.
And then COVID happened, and we almost canceled and then decided not to. And we made it 3,102 miles. And at the end of the trip, I had this realization that I had just made it across the United States on a tandem bicycle, which meant I could do anything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a matter of, can I do something? It's a matter of, what do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I said, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first book came out.
Wow. Interesting. So riding across the United States is what causes you to decide that you can write a book, even though you were a storyteller long before you were a bicycle.
So, and I was, even prior to going on the ride, I was writing manuscripts. I had started writing manuscripts when I got out of the bad relationship, but I wasn't showing them to anyone. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I couldn't imagine anyone would want to read what I'd written. And so, like my daughter had seen it, but no one even knew I was actually writing. And then, we went on this trip, and I thought, what do you want to be? It's not a matter of what, if, but what. And I said, I want to be an author. And so
it was a breakthrough moment, is what
it was. It was a huge breakthrough. A lot of people said you changed on the ride. I didn't change. I found myself again. I had lost myself. I think we do that. Life just throws all kinds of stuff on you, and you forget who you are. And that ride helped me sort that all back out, put the stuff I didn't need anymore in a box and put it away where it, every now and then it still pops out. But now I look at it and go, oh, I know what that is, and I can move on. It fundamentally changed the way I looked at life. Prior to that ride, I kind of felt like my life was done. I was 57, and I thought, I'm going to be a grandma, which is great. That sounds wonderful. And I guess that's what I'll do.
I think there's more to it, though, in that what you really did is you broke through something that many divorced people don't break through. And I say that as somebody who is one-time divorced. My divorce came 3 years ago. And since then, I've met a lot of divorced people, particularly divorced women. And it's just amazing to me how divorce and the bruises and bumps that you get that lead to the divorce is how they end up defining themselves.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's what I was doing. It was just, not only was it divorce, but then I had abuse that went with it. And so
Mhm.
all of that became part of who I was. And all of that told me that I wasn't good enough.
And yet
Couldn't,
you broke through that, though. That
yeah.
to me, that's the real headline here. Not only did you go through that, but you came to the other side and you essentially found a way to leave that behind and
Yeah.
not define yourself that way anymore.
No, like I said, every now and then it rears its ugly head. I mean, I don't think that you can ever leave your past completely in the past. It has the tendency to
Mhm.
show up. But now I recognize it. And so I'll think, "Ooh, where did that come from? Ah, I know what that is." And
Mhm.
I take a good look at it. I make a decision. Is that necessary in this scenario? The answer is almost always no. And then I put it back away where it belongs
Okay.
because, it's part of my past. And it's okay to occasionally look there, but there's no reason to live there.
Boy, what a great phrase that one was.
Wasn't it?
I mean, you just summarized the whole thing in one sentence. It's okay to visit, but you don't want to live there.
Right. I mean, if I wanted to live there, I'd still be there, right?
That's right.
I mean,
And a
it's
lot of
not
people are. A lot of people
right.
do still live there.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I don't know, it was very freeing to realize that, first of all, I did have value, that everything that I had been told, those 12 years, 14 years leading up to that wasn't true. That wasn't who I was.
Mhm.
And I had Bruce, who completely 100% was behind me. Like if I had said that I wanted to be an astronaut, he would have said, "Okay, let's go."
Mhm.
I mean, he was that person for me. And so, yeah, I don't know. I am different than I was before the ride, but I'm still very much me. I just found all of those shreds of pieces that had been, left littered all around. And I was able to kind of patch them all back together. And it was like, okay, here I am. And this is what I want. And I made a decision that I would never be that unhappy again. Now, it's not to say that I don't have unhappy days, because I do. And it's not to say that the world can't throw things at you that can make you pretty miserable, because that does happen, but that I will not stay in a situation that makes me that miserable anymore. And that would be in a relationship, that would be in a job, that would be, I gave up. Someone asked me to be on a committee the other day, and I did it for about 4 days, hated it, completely stressed me out. And I said, yeah, this isn't for me.
Mm.
It's not for me. And I do that now. I give myself permission to say, ooh, that was a mistake. Get out. Whereas before I was, oh, that's a mistake. And now you have to live with it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm far more likely to just admit that was a mistake. I should have never said yes to that. I'm no good on committees. I really don't like them. Give me something to do. I'd rather do something. I'll cook eight containers of chili, but don't put me on a committee, right? Like, tell me what you need me to do. And so I'm just learning that it's okay, that I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm still going to assume I want one thing and really need something else. And that when I recognize it, it's okay to say, whoo, that was bad. Let's get out of this and try something new.
Emery, this is really fascinating to me, because what I'm hearing as I'm listening to Teri here, as we're listening to Teri, is somebody who's taken, it's a philosophy I've expressed here many times, that you get to choose what your response is to a given situation. You don't control what the situations are, but you can control your response. She's taken that to almost like a new level.
Yeah. I mean, as you were saying, I was thinking you've traveled and done a journey across the States, and here you are doing a journey back to yourself. It just sounds like you're just being so free and so authentic and just doing what's good for you. And that's probably kind of more refreshing in the long run, especially with the committee work.
Yes. I just learn. The other thing that I've done is I've been able to kind of accept how I do the world. I'm very emotional. I laugh really loud and really hard, and I cry really loud and really hard, and I have everything in between. I'm definitely not even, right? Like I'm all over the place, and I've always disliked that about myself. I've always felt like I was too much. I'm too emotional. I'm too this, I'm too that. I wish I could. And if you read the blog, there are times where I'm crying on the side of the road because it's just so hard. And in my blog, I would say, I wish I weren't this way. I wish that I didn't cry. I wish. I've learned that it's how I do the world, and it's okay. For me, a good cry on the side of the road then kind of clears my mind and allows me to be a little more logical and say, okay, standing here on the side of the road doesn't make any sense. What does make sense? What can I do? What can be done? I can't do that when I'm feeling all the feels. So for me, I have to go ahead and let it out and feel it. And I give myself time to do that now. It's like, okay, scream. It's fine. Walk through the house, rage, throw your hands in the air, do everything that you need to do. And when you're done, come back and we're going to have a little conversation about what needs to be done next. So the first time that happened on the ride, poor Bruce, he didn't know what to do with me. We were just a few days in. It was a hot day. It was long. I was tired. It didn't take too long for the shiny to wear off of this really long journey. And I thought, oh, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be. And we're standing on the side of the road. There's some cows in a pasture. There's this one tree, and I'm sobbing. And I'm sure Bruce was thinking, this is it. We're done. Like, get a car. We're going to drive everything home. And he even said to try to like comfort me. And it was like, don't touch me, because I didn't need that. I needed to go ahead and cry. And then I kind of wiped my tears and I said, okay, let's go.
That must have been really confusing for him.
And he looked at me like, what? And I said, well, we can't stay here. And where we're headed to is 11 miles. And the only way to get there is on this bicycle. So let's go. And he soon learned that there were going to be times where I stood on the side of the road and cried. And that it was okay, that I was going to be okay. Let her have her moment, but it's the same thing that I do, like when I see something beautiful. I walk over, I live at the beach. So I walk over the dunes and, right? I have yet to see a sunrise that is the same as the sunrise before. Every time I see one, I am in awe over what I'm seeing. And so for me, I don't think I could do that if I didn't also do the cry thing. I don't think you get to just have the big good emotions if you're not going to also have the big bad ones.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so I spent so much time wishing that I were flat when really that's not what I want. And so now I've just accepted this is who I am. And some people kind of laugh at it and call me emotional and do all the things. And that's fine. That's what I am. The only thing is when people tell me I'm too emotional, I tell them, no, I'm just emotional.
I think people are so scared of letting their own emotions out, and they want to sit them, bury them, and then locked away. And then when other people show their emotions, it just makes everybody so uncomfortable. But actually, as a writer, and you're invested in your characters, that's your hidden gift. Well, not even hidden anymore, is it? Because you're
letting it out. Whoa.
That's your gift.
Yeah. So for me, it's been very freeing in that way as well, to realize this just is who I am, and it's okay. I don't have to be something different.
That's very empowering when you can come to terms with yourself as you are.
Yeah.
Because really, that's the challenge we all face. We may not think about it that way. So much of it's really fascinating how often humans will try to deal with their various problems through external activities. We're getting more and more people who are recognizing the importance of going within, but still, even to this day, I encounter people all the time who it's very clear to me they're trying to resolve their issues by doing things externally.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that wonders, okay, so when are they going to do the internal part? I don't say that to them. I don't want to insult them or anything.
And the thing is I think that you kind of need both.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you sometimes have to have something external that helps you get to the place where you can then sit with yourself, But
I don't think you have as much trouble doing the external. I mean,
no. I think that's the easy part.
There are a few people who are going to kind of be, kind of trapped. Like, I can't really do anything. But for the most part, I think most people can do the external stuff. It's the internal one that's the hard one for most.
Right. Yeah, the internal, the sitting with it.
Yeah.
You know, the looking at it, the deciding what's necessary and what's not, the putting things away in boxes you don't really need anymore. All of that's tough work.
And being okay with it, being okay with
Yeah.
who you are and how you express and what it is that you think and what it is that you feel. And so being okay with all that.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to be okay in this world because you're told you're not.
Mm.
You know, you don't have to be in an abusive relationship to be told you're not. All you have to do is get on social media and you'll find out you're not right away. I mean, seriously, it doesn't take long. People break off into groups and point their fingers at other people. And, you know, you could say it's politics, but it's also over whether you want pineapple on your pizza or whether you believe that formula feeding is okay, or whether or not you're going to feed your child anything that was sugar in it. All of those things can cause people to believe they're not good enough. I look at my daughter right now. She's a mom of 3. She's going to have her 4th. And she has all of these expectations because of social media, I think, but you know, about what is she feeding her kids and are they getting enough exercise and are they reading the right books and do they do enough or too much family stuff? Is she a helicopter parent or is she just cautious? Like all of the things that she's worried about. Yeah. You don't have to look far for the world to tell you you're not okay.
Yeah, well, and I also think that I call this the blame-ridden society or the victim-driven society. And I think that blame-ridden, victim-driven society is driven by the fact that most people won't look within. Yeah. It's a lot easier to point your finger at somebody else than it is to deal with your own.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Because, I mean, who really wants to look at the ugly inside of themselves?
Yeah, that's uncomfortable.
I mean, it's very uncomfortable. And so it's much easier to point the finger and it's your fault, you know. And that's what you're doing. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about you. And I think that's human nature that we say it's a now thing, but I think it's been going on forever.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
it's always been yeah.
The circumstances changed. You know, my parents grew up in the Great Depression, so that was certainly different from my experience or your experience or Anne Marie's. But I mean, it was people just going through stuff. You know, that has gone on for as long as
ever.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think we got the root of it right there. I'm curious, Anne Marie, which parts of these are of what we're talking about here? What's resonating the most? The reason I ask Anne Marie this, Teri, is Anne Marie is not only a co-host, she's a former listener. So that's kind of like my way of tapping in. Okay, what's the listener listening to right now? So what are you grabbing?
I think for me, I love the fact that you're just unapologetically you. And I just think that's a massive breath of fresh air. But I love the fact that you've come from that. You said your parents said, oh, you can't make a living from that. And you can't do this. And you've been told this, that, and the other. And you've just gone, no, this is what makes my book so good. This is what makes my stories. And I'm loving that element of this story today. Because just watching you be so free and just so wonderful and bright, and it makes you want to read the books because you know that's going to transform into those characters.
Well, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, when you get that kind of a feedback, you realize you've gotten somewhere. You've done something.
Yeah, you know, it's still hard. Something I've realized is I still don't take compliments well. People say something like that, and I feel like going, "Oh, not me. Oh, oh, I'm just being me, and I am just being me." And so it just feels a little awkward, you know, when people say something like that. But yeah, I am me. I still struggle. It's not that I just, you know, go through the world and there are times where I'm with certain people or in certain situations where I try to make myself small, or, you know, hide part of who I am because it might not go over so well with this group or whatever. I mean, I think that will probably always be part of life because you try so hard to fit in. And sometimes that means that you're not unapologetically you, you know. It's interesting. I have my youngest daughter has Asperger's, which is on the spectrum, so on the autism spectrum. And I've always, since raising her and watching her, and she's now an adult and doing life, and she's, you know, everything's great. I wished I was more like her. because she is unapologetically who she is.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know how to be anyone else.
Yeah. There's no filter.
Yeah.
Right. And so she is who she is with her neighborhood friends, is who she is with her church friends, which is who she is with her. There's just one of her.
Mm.
And you either like her or you don't.
Mm.
Right. But those people who like her.
Right.
Mm.
Whereas you look at a lot of other people and you think, those people who like you, do they even know you? You know, like, have you let them know who you are?
Yeah.
And, you know, we say that, you know, having autism and that inability to be so many different people is like a problem. And I almost wonder if we don't have it backward.
Oh, I agree.
If
Right.
you know, she's got it right. And the rest of us are struggling with trying to fit in. And she doesn't try to struggle to fit in. She is who she is. And you either like her or you don't. And it doesn't even bother her if you don't.
No, it's not even relevant.
No.
I've had co-hosts who are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, they don't consider it to be any kind of something that holds them back at all. They actually consider it to be a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
I think, but like any superpower, there's, you know, the other side of it, which does make it harder for them in social situations and other things. I mean, there is that, but I don't know, the superpower part is just being able to be who you are and really not worrying. There was this thing that I helped put together in a small town. We were trying to do like a big storytelling thing where people would stand up and do oral storytelling, because that's something that's dying. And I just loved this idea of working with this lady that wanted to do it. And my daughter decides that she is going to stand up and tell a story.
Okay.
Which, you know, she was 17. She's on the autism spectrum. And she stood up and told a story. And it was, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was maybe a 7.5 or 8. Not bad for someone who just stood up for the first time.
Yeah.
And I said to her, you know, weren't you afraid? Didn't you get stage fright? And she was like, stage fright? Like, why? And I said, well, like, worried whether or not anyone would like it. She said, I didn't tell it for anyone to like it. I told it because I wanted to tell a story. And, you know, if they liked it, that's great. And if they didn't, well, there were other stories they could listen to. I mean, she didn't have any. And what's crazy is that my oldest daughter was in the audience sitting next to me watching her, and she was maroon and totally embarrassed the entire time her sister was standing up there.
Really?
And I said, why are you, she's doing fine. Why are you embarrassed? And she said, someone has to be. Right. And so it's just kind of crazy. This ability to be who you are. You know, I'm 62 and I think I finally have a handle on it. It's a shame I had to wait so many years to get to that point. You know,
well, it's a shame or else it's a blessing that you got there.
It's a blessing that I got there. But I think, what would life have looked like if I could have done this at 18?
Yeah. Well,
you know, and you can't know. I mean, you know, you can't go backward. But it is interesting to wonder, like what would have happened if at 18 I had said, this is who I am.
I think anybody who's gone through any kind of crash and burn crisis, come out the other side situation has experienced that thought.
Yeah.
What if I didn't have to go through this? What if I had actually learned all this before?
And wouldn't that have been wonderful? And then on the other hand, who would I have been?
Well, that's what I was thinking of, because once again, I'm thinking about one of my other co-hosts, Joel Elston, who went through some of the worst crash and burn you could possibly imagine. He went to prison. He was homeless. He ate out of a dumpster. I mean, he had all kinds of stuff that went on. And he literally describes that period as the best thing that ever happened in his life. And I remember the first time he described that, and I thought he was completely off his rocker. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I've since come to appreciate he's right. But those
kinds of times show you who you are.
They do.
Help you figure out what matters in your life and what doesn't matter. Helps you let go of things.
And they help you to grow.
Yeah, there's a large part of me that wishes that I hadn't been in an emotionally abusive relationship. I mean, no one really wants that
No.
in their life. On the other hand, what I became as I left it, as I healed from it, as I moved beyond it, I wouldn't want to give that up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I could be in this place without having gone through that. And so you just kind of, you almost make peace with it. It is what it is. The past is just back there. You can't do a whole lot about it.
And it's a pattern that plays out over and over again, because literally guest after guest, no matter what their career path was, no matter what their life path was, they went through some sort of crash and burn, came out the other side, and they all point to the same thing and say, yeah, I don't want to live through it again, but it was the best thing that ever happened.
Right. Like, there's no way I'd like, no, I'm not going back to that relationship. Are you out of your mind? Like,
Right.
no. And I don't ever want to be in another one like that.
No.
But having been in it, I learned some very valuable lessons about myself, about others. I also now feel like I have an opportunity. I've talked with a lot of women. I can spot abuse 1,000 miles away. I mean, no, I can look at, and I'll think, oh, I see what's happening here. And it allows me to offer, not advice, no one likes advice, but just to offer insights, you know, in a way that they can understand and know that I'm not pushing them to change anything or be anything or do anything, but more or less, hey, if there's ever a time in your life where you're done doing what you're doing, I want you to understand there's life on the other side of that.
Yes.
You know, that this doesn't have to be your story. It can be if you choose it, but it doesn't have to be. And it's wonderful. And I can say that because I was there and now I'm not. And you can't hear that from someone who's never been there.
True. Yeah. But even more when you have a conversation with, like we so often do here on the show, or you get to know somebody who has gone through something like that and they've come out the other side and they've changed as a result. They've grown in some way. They learned something from it, some valuable lesson, whatever. That's when I appreciate the difference between people who did that and the people who stay stuck.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who stay stuck.
Right. And it's one of the reasons I wrote the book. So everyone assumes that 10 Little Rules for Double-Butted Adventure is just about bicycling, and it's not. In fact, it's got bicycle stories in it, but what it's about is living life outside of the box that you put yourself in. Because we all put ourselves in little boxes where, you know, it feels comfortable. It's easy. We know what's going to happen next because it's comfortable and easy. But when you're doing comfortable and easy, you're not growing.
True.
You're not becoming, you're not learning. You're just kind of paddling along, doing nothing. And I say the book is really for people who are trying to find a way to be just a tad more adventurous. And that doesn't mean necessarily on a tandem bicycle. It could be something like moving to a new city, changing a job, getting into a relationship, getting out of a relationship, starting playing piano at age 50, whatever it is, doing something just a little outside the norm for you. And then what does that look like? And how can you do that? And how can you be successful at that?
It's funny now that I'm at my point in life where I am compared to, say, 13 years ago when I started the podcast, or even 3 years ago when I became divorced. In both of those instances, I can now look back and recognize how, if I had tried to stay in that comfortable place, first of all, there's nothing comfortable about it.
Right.
Secondly, it would only have just made my life even more miserable than it was at that time. And it was pretty miserable at both of those times. But it would have been even more miserable if I just stayed there.
But even in misery, people feel comfortable because they know what to expect.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and just because you didn't like it doesn't mean that it wasn't comfortable, because you knew, because what's on the other side, you don't know what's on the other side. So the other side is scary. So it's better to stay, you know, it's, what is that? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Right. And so I think that's what happens, is people become stuck in bad things, not necessarily abuse, but just in things that are no longer serving you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the reason they don't move forward is because they're terrified. What is on the other side? What if I make a mistake? And I now say, yeah, I'm going to make a mistake. I don't even worry about it. The likelihood is I'm going to make a mistake or 2 or 6, and it's okay. Because normally you have a chance, unless you're doing things like killing people, you have a chance to fix it. Right? So, you get on a committee, it's no good for you. You get off the committee. Some people don't like you because you said yes and then said no. Oh, well. I mean, you learn. You're going to assume and make mistakes and try things that aren't good for you, but you don't know until you try it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what I was trying to point to is that I can recall what it's like to be in that stuck place. I have a hard time remembering wanting to stay there. I know that I did because I was there.
Right.
But trying to remember what that felt like is very hard to do.
It is because once you get on the other side, it's kind of hard to project yourself back. I often look at the woman that was in that relationship, look at her and think, who was that?
Yeah.
Because I know it was me,
Sure.
but it doesn't feel like it was me. And I can't imagine, why did I put up with that? I don't even understand, what? And yet it was me. And so I understand what you're saying. There is that kind of, I don't know, but it's the same thing when I rode across the United States on the bicycle. I got done and I thought, did I do that? Who was that? So
I think what captures my attention on this topic is when you're stuck, you can't imagine not being stuck.
Yeah.
And when you become unstuck from that kind of thing, you can't imagine being stuck again.
Right. And it does worry me a little because you think, well, what if it did happen again? Would I recognize it fast enough? Would I get out fast enough? And then I just tell myself, we can't go there. We just can't play that game.
And quite honestly, you would notice it. Because
I would hope so.
I think you would, because you've done it before.
Yeah. You'd see it and say, yeah, this is not good.
This is familiar here. I recognize this thing.
Yeah, this is very bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Been here, done that, got the t-shirt.
See, I can recognize it the other way around. When I was younger, I used to say outside of my comfort zone was my comfort zone. I loved doing things that made me feel really uncomfortable. And then I became a mother and I went through menopause and I just felt like I lost a lot of myself and I feel I'm coming out of that again. So I feel like I was that free person and I was out the comfort zone. And actually now I'm a bit more scared of life. Yeah. And it's a way horrible place to be. I much preferred who I used to be, just being scared, but happy scared.
Yeah. The scared that wasn't afraid of consequences. It was just afraid because you were doing something exhilarating, something that was whoa.
Exactly. I was scared to do this podcast, wasn't I, many years ago?
You were, yeah.
It's the best thing. I love it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when you just kind of force yourself to do it,
yes.
I take a deep breath a lot of times because my inclination is to say no, just hide. I can't, and then it's like, Teri, where is all of that? We know what that is. Take a deep breath. You're just going to do it. You're just going to do it. And often as I'm in the middle of whatever it is, I realize I'm having fun. The very first podcast that I was ever a guest on, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I didn't like public speaking, which is hysterical because now I absolutely love it, but I did not like it at all. And I was frightened to the point that I didn't eat all day.
Wow.
And you know how you get the link, so that you can come on, right?
Right.
I was on 45 minutes early for fear that somehow I would be wrong. I needed, and I was a complete wreck. After it was over, my thought was, that was kind of fun. I might do that again. And so I did another one. And before long, I now have my own podcast as well. And I'm on podcasts all the time and I love it. And then I was like, well, I wonder what it'd be like to do this in front of an audience, live, with them staring at me.
Yeah.
And so I tried a few of those, and the first one was, terrifying. And I thought that I was going to lose my lunch, and the blood was rushing through my ears so loudly I could hardly hear myself. And I wasn't even sure I was making any sense. But when it was all over, I thought, I kind of like that.
It makes you feel alive, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's just something about being successful at something you weren't sure you could do. It's kind of a rush.
And we haven't really talked about it, but tell us about the podcast that you do now.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Online for Authors, and I talk with authors like myself, independents, and those in small presses, essentially those who have a hard time finding a space to get the word out about their book. I, as an author, love it when a host has read my books, because especially if we're going to be talking about a book, and that was the purpose, because otherwise the conversation feels odd, stilted. They only know what they know from the back of the book or from someone's review or whatever. So I decided I would read all the books before I had someone come on.
Wow.
And so I do. This year I've read 82 books. And so, and I have people come on after reading their book, and we have these great conversations. It goes along with, on my website, it says that I introduce people, readers, to characters they'd love to invite to lunch.
Wow.
And that's really what I do with the podcast as well, is I introduce them to not my characters, but other people's characters that they might like to invite to lunch. And so it's a lot of fun. If, for people who don't know what to read next and who are tired of only reading what's on the New York Times bestsellers list and would like to expand beyond that. And I highly recommend that. There are so many good books out there.
Oh, it's ridiculous how many get published every year that people don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
And how cool that you are taking your passion for characters and bringing that passion to other people's characters.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. If there's a good character in a book, I can read just about any genre. I don't like horror, and I don't like it because I have a very vivid imagination, and I can't sleep. So I can't read it because it really, it'll bother me for weeks, and that's not good for me. And then I don't like to read smutty stuff just because I don't enjoy reading it. And second, I'm not going to talk about it on a podcast. So, those are the two that I don't read.
Well, you know what your limits are. That's good.
Yeah.
The main thing is you don't let the limits stop you from exploring the stuff that you do want to explore.
Well, and it's interesting because I would have said that I didn't like fantasy books, and that's not true. I like a fantasy as long as there's good character development. And some fantasies are what they call high fantasy, which are the ones that are very detailed about their worlds, tend not to be something I enjoy because they're more worried about the world than they are about the people in the world.
Yes.
But the fantasies that I think they're called low fantasy, I don't know why we use words like that, but low fantasy, I tend to like a lot better because the characters matter. Right. And then I can get involved in that. Now it doesn't matter that some of them have wings and look like pigs. That doesn't matter to me, So
I like that. That's really, really good. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm really glad that you've come on to talk about this because we're tapping into something that is really very important to me. I mean, kind of characterization is actually kind of a small piece of that same puzzle, because characterization is about exploring a person in a way that you never explored before. And that is the act of breaking out of a comfort zone.
Right.
So it's like a microcosm of the larger topic of breaking out of your comfort zone and living outside the comfort zone. Something that personally I've come to embrace over the last 10, 15 years. And I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to go back to a comfort zone. If I ever had to be, if somebody put a gun in my head and said, you got to live in a comfort zone, I'd say pull the trigger.
Yeah. Well, and kind of like what I said, where I'm never going to be that unhappy again. I mean, there are just certain things that you learn what you need to be who you are, and to, I don't know, I want to finish up life kind of with my hair on fire. I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair knitting. That's not what I want to be doing. Yeah. I want to be living. I want to be trying things, trying new things, experimenting, seeing, I've I'm learning to play the piano. I'm no good, but I'm learning to play the
Good for
piano.
you.
I want to learn to play the violin. Actually, I want to learn to play the fiddle. I would love fiddle music. I
Okay.
think that is just remarkable. I want to learn to watercolor.
Wow.
I dabble at all kinds of weird little things. I've tried ballroom dancing. I've learned to play bridge. There's a lot of things that that's what I want to keep doing.
Yeah.
You know, I want a list of things that Teri's going to try next.
Sounds to me like your biggest challenge at the moment is probably time to get all
Time.
that in. Yeah.
Time. Yeah, because you figure I'm writing, I'm podcasting. And then I have other things that I do. I play bridge every Thursday with the ladies, and I like to walk on the beach, and I have a very large family. My husband and I, when we married, he has 3 daughters. I have 3 daughters and a son.
Wow.
Between us, we have 11 grandchildren, 2 great grandchildren. So I love family, and I'm very involved with family, and all of that. Oh yeah, people say to me, "When do you sleep?" And it's like, yeah, I've got that scheduled. Don't worry about it. It's time to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those afterthoughts. Like, okay, I'll get some sleep in, sure,
Yeah.
but I've got too much to do. I can't spend a lot of time on that one.
I can't spend a lot of time on that. And every now and then, this morning was one of those. I had my alarm set, and the alarm went off, and I thought, I need another hour. I need it. And so I thought real quickly about my schedule and said, I can do it. And so I'll probably have some things to do this evening that would have normally been a quiet evening, but I needed it. So yeah. So I do sleep. So for those who
I think
wonder,
what you're talking about is tapping into, you're really talking about staying in the heart. I mean, that's what all this is, following what's in your heart and doing that moment to moment, literally every single day without exception.
Yeah.
Because that's when you make that decision to sleep in, that's what you're doing. You're saying, I don't care what the convention says. This is me right now.
Me right now needs another hour.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it.
But just knowing what you need, being that in tune with yourself. Some people just aren't. It's like, yeah, go to bed so-and-so, get up at so-and-so, and that's it. It's that routine. You're just like, no, I know I need this to be probably way more effective than you would be without it.
Right. So that everything else I do today, I don't have to have, lots of caffeine to get me through it.
Exactly.
So.
Good thing.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Tell people again the names of the 3 books, where to find them, and how do they find out about you?
Yeah, so the best place to find out about me is just go to my website, which is my name, TeriMBrown.com, and that's Teri with 1 R. There you can find all of my books. So it's Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, An Enemy Like Me, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure, and then Little Lola and Her Big Dream is my picture book. And then coming soon, hopefully in the spring, will be Peg Unhinged. And it's about a woman going through menopause. So you'll love that. It's just a funny, humorous Peg Unhinged. And you can also find my podcast there. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can follow all my social media. Really, if you go to my website, from there, you can find everything.
All right. That's a good thing.
And I also have just a contact me page. So if you can't find what you're looking for, contact me and I'll get you to the right place.
So you like it when people reach out personally to you?
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I there's nothing better than when someone says, like, I read your book and I liked it, or there was this one piece and I was wondering what you were thinking when, or all of those things. I really enjoy it.
I get exactly what you mean, but I love hearing that you like that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So Emery, I asked you before, but I'm going to ask you to do it again. How do you tie all this together today? Like what's your thread, your common thread?
I think in addition to what I mentioned earlier, I really loved it when you said force yourself to do it. Just take that deep breath and force yourself to do it. And then that tied in very well with something that you said earlier, in the fact that once you start doing stuff, it leads to other stuff and it leads to other stuff. So just take that deep breath, go for it, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful stuff. I love it. One final thing that I like to do with every show, and Teri, you make this really easy, actually. But
We'll see.
it's a 21st century thing. I mean, you described all these different things that you're doing that are 21st century technology related, right? You know, you've got the blogging, you've got the podcasting, you've written the books, so, you know, all those various things that you're doing on a regular basis. You put a newsletter out, you're doing all these 21st century contact things. And something I noticed about all these different ways that we now have to reach out to each other is we now have a whole bunch of people who have heard of us, thought about us, read our stuff, listened to our stuff and so forth, and taken stuff away from it and got affected in ways we didn't even know about.
Right.
And in the process of that happening, we're actually helping people change their own lives, and we're not finding out about it, and we're not getting credit for it. And I said, well, shoot, we can do something about that. So Teri, on behalf of those people you've never met, you've never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping about ways that you didn't even know you were helping, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Yes.
Thanks.
We appreciate you so much. And I appreciate you, Anne-Marie. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Walt.
Looking
Good to
forward
be back.
to doing the future episodes as well. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.